Hey everyone, and welcome to Unsung Heroes, the interview series where we talk to people working in the comics industry who don't get the spotlight they definitely deserve. I'm AJ Mason. My co-host is Zach Owens. Let's begin, okay? Hi everyone. Thank you, Mr. Clayton Cowles, for joining us. I'm AJ. This is Zach next to me. And this is our first episode of an interview series we're doing with monkey fighting robots called Unsung Heroes. Clayton Cowles, our first guest, is a letterer who has lettered over 2,800 issues. Does that number sound right to you?
Yeah, that's the most accurate estimate I can find.
That's a lot of issues.
Yeah, it's been a long 10 and a half years.
So, Mr. Cowles, you started your career it's 2009, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right after you graduated from the Joel Kubert School. We were looking into it, and it looks like is it true that your first project was COWBOY NINJA VIKING?
Yep, that's right. My first project was the COWBOY NINJA VIKING pitch and another pitch by the same writer, AJ Lieberman, for Term Life, which I ended up not doing, but COWBOY NINJA VIKING was picked up, and it was my first monthly series.
And that was with Riley Rossman on art and colors, right?
Yep.
When you look back on COWBOY NINJA VIKING, you said like 10 and a half years ago. Is there anything that, like, now that you've, been lettering for 10 and a half years, that you're like, oh gosh, why did I do that? Or is it one of those works that you look back on and you're like, you know what, dang, yeah, that still holds up. That's still as good as it would be today.
More so the latter. I try to be more sympathetic these days when thinking about my past work because, yeah, that's just where I was at the time, and I probably couldn't have done any better. But I also look at COWBOY NINJA VIKING now and go, wow, that is crazy what we did. All those little, like, not just the art and the layouts and stuff, but all the little logos we installed into each balloon to show which personality was speaking. I'm like, that is nuts. I don't think I'd even think about trying something like that now. It's just so out there. And I'm so much more grounded in doing like what's practical and not holding up the book on stuff that I think is going to cause problems later, which is probably the wrong instinct because COWBOY NINJA VIKING turned out pretty good.
Yeah, it was. I mean, AJ and I were looking through it, and that was the thing that popped up for us, where we were like, wow, the way that you guys used it was like the sword, the gun, and the axe to show which of the personalities was talking, and then like in later issues it goes into more of that. It's a brilliant way to like make it, like, it could be such a confusing page, and it makes it so simple to know, oh, that's the personality that's talking right now.
Yeah, we spent maybe a week fine-tuning, me and AJ at least, how to correctly show which character was talking. And we talked about doing colored balloons or colored balloons with symbols. And then we just settled on symbols, I think partly because it was decided that each issue would only be colored with one Pantone. So we couldn't really do the varied color thing throughout.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's really simple and minimalistic, but like it works so well. I big fan of the stuff I saw there. And I remember also looking back through it, just simple things like it's in the first issue that like a boat blows up, and the way that it has like the kawoom or something like that is just like, it's just like little variances like that are so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like the kaboom is one thing I look back on and go, oh, I'd do that thing differently, because I just know more technical stuff about how I would approach something of that effect that I think would be more effective. But hearing you actually say that puts me at ease.
That's good. Yeah.
Okay, I guess I don't have anything to worry about there. It turned out good. This guy likes it. He seems nice.
It was definitely like one of the first things I noticed when I was looking through the first issue. I was like, wow, that's cool. I can hear it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole thing.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you.
So after you said you worked for 2 pitches with AJ Lieberman, so after that we saw that you started working for Marvel. So how did you get to work for Marvel after finishing one of your first lettering jobs at Image?
Well, I did them concurrently. I got the Marvel job, which is really through Virtual Calligraphy, which is Marvel's unofficial lettering and production studio. And one of my teachers at the Joel Kubert School happened to know Chris Eliopoulos. He, according to my teacher, sort of attacked Chris at an airport when they were both leaving the same convention. I'm a big fan, take my card. And Chris was like, oh, okay. Knowing what I know about him now, I'm sure that's how it went. But Chris remembered him and thought he was a nice guy. And when he was looking for interns for Virtual Calligraphy, he contacted that teacher, and that teacher knew I was seeking a career in lettering. So he set it up. And I was working under/with Joe Caramagna for those first 6 months or so. He would show me the ropes and have me like set books up for him, and he would look at my samples and give me suggestions and tell me how to and how not to do a bunch of stuff. And eventually they decided they liked me enough to make me a full-time letterer, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Still with VC, still love those guys, and our one lady who just joined the team, Ariana Marr. She's cool too. Awesome. I'll do her the honor of not calling her a guy.
When you first started trying to break into the industry, even before going to the Joel Kubert School, was lettering comics your dream job?
Absolutely not. It was something I sort of fell into by accident. I went to Joel Kubert School to learn how to draw with intent to be a penciler, and I just happened to do really well in my lettering courses. Like, sure, I learned how to draw better while I was there. I was hardly the best in my class, but I also wasn't the worst. But lettering seemed to be an area where I had a particular strength. So I thought, yeah, I'll pursue this as a career for now, use it as a networking opportunity. And I knew a few people, like my teacher and some other people associated with the school who had hookups in the lettering world. So I could use those connections to break in more easily. But once I started doing lettering, I just fell in love with the craft. I didn't pay attention to things like fonts and how to style sound effects before I started doing it. But then once I did, I went, oh, this is really cool. And not only do I enjoy doing it, but people think I'm good at doing it too. And that's a nice, lovely affirmation. So that's pretty much how it went. Now it's what I spend most of my time doing. It's pretty good.
Do you still do any penciling or anything like that? I saw your website. You definitely like post images and stuff on there that you do. Do you still do some penciling and drawing?
On the side, I drew something yesterday for a friend for Christmas. Maybe by the time she hears this, she'll have seen it and go, oh, he's talking about me. And I'm working on something for fun today, but yeah, it's been for the last 5-ish years, it's been consistently put off to the side, but I've done a few small interior penciling and inking jobs here and there. I drew a page for the 3rd volume of Phonogram at the end of the 1st issue. And I also drew a page for the Wicked and Divine comedy special a couple of years ago. And those were both a lot of fun. They sort of reignited the spark before the lettering workload quickly dampened it. But creating comics in a non-lettering capacity is still something I have a passion for and something I'd like to do more of going forward.
Yeah, you've worked with a lot of really fantastic creators that work in those fields.
And how?
Yeah. Do you feel like there's been any like dissemination of like tricks of storytelling that's kind of come down to you as part of being part of the team collaborating?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Like for better or for worse, it's really great seeing artists who I love extremely up close. I've been lettering Pepe Larraz's Marvel work since House of X began, and I've been a fan of his for a long time. And just being able to see his stuff like zoomed in like 800% and looking and like dissecting how like which brushes he uses and where has been super cool. And also just working so closely with writers and examining their scripts to make them compatible with lettering has also been an experience. I have a good idea of what to do and what not to do with dialogue if I were to write it for myself. And also, I just have an idea of like a better idea of like not making art too big or storytelling impracticalities like landmines that come up later on in the process because I'm the one at the end of the production line and I'm usually the one who has to deal with hiccups and things. So
Yeah.
That's also something I can be mindful of.
Yeah, especially with like dialogue placement and fitting that in on the page with the art, I'm sure.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah.
Like wrong speaking order is like when I do sit down and draw something for myself, speaking order is something I'm very mindful of. And also, like, I try to map out the balloons and all the characters in them, like as I'm still in the layout stage, just so I know that there's enough room for everything.
Yeah.
And I know of some artists who do that too, like Declan Shalvey does it. Jorge Fornes does it.
Yeah.
So.
What's kind of interesting to me in getting to talk with a letterer such as yourself is the collaboration experience of working in a team. I've heard people talk, like artists, writers, talk so much about the fact that it is a very collaborative process where, a writer is writing something for the artist to do, the artist is kind of changing that up quite a bit, and vice versa. How do you feel as a letterer? Because in a lot of ways, it seems like your artistry happens on the smaller scale, right? It's the little variances that you have in putting a word balloon here versus there, the pacing of the dialogue and stuff like that, and being able to communicate that, sound effects, all that stuff. How do you feel in being a part of the collaboration process? Do you feel that you have as much room for like pushback and stuff like that in the process?
It doesn't come up very much, to be honest. I'm mostly left to my own devices. Like on Big Two books, I'm mostly talking to just the editors. And there are just rules that you have to follow when you do a Marvel and DC book anyway. So there's not that much wiggle room unless you're doing like a Tom King book. And even then, the rules are pretty set in stone once you begin, for like lettering wise anyway. Once we have the style nailed down, then I can just go from there. But on creator owned books, there's a lot more room for, I don't know if fun is the right word, but
yeah. Cool.
But there's certainly room to get zanier. And yeah, on some books with people who I've been working with for a while, like Kieran Gillen or Kelly Sue DeConnick, I will come at them with a suggestion, or more likely they'll come to me with a suggestion, and we'll hammer out how to properly execute it.
That's
so
cool.
I certainly think I'm far less a collaborator with the rest of the team in general, just because of where I am in the line, but I'm mostly okay with it. I still feel like I'm valued by the rest of the team. It's not an issue of that. It's just this is how things are set up, and yeah, them's the breaks. It's fine.
You really are like the person in the team who is, I in some ways, the most of a bridge through. Like, you tell us you're the roadmap to every comic, right? Because it's through your placement of the dialogue and stuff that we know how to experience each issue, really.
Sure, I'll take that.
Yeah. We want to start going through some of your specific work, if you don't mind, and talk about
hit me.
Things that went through. AJ, if you want to talk about this first one, it's Batman issue 62.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not kidding.
Yeah.
So like Zach mentioned, we want to talk to you about Batman issue number 62, written by Tom King and art and colors by Mitch Gerards. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
I don't even know anymore. Sorry, Mitch. We had a full conversation about that one time, and all I can remember is having the conversation. I don't remember where it landed. At least he knows how to pronounce my name.
Yeah. So that issue is almost entirely made up of captions. What were the challenges of lettering comic that's mostly captions?
Is this the Professor Pig issue?
Yeah, this is the Professor Pig versus the Damian Wayne issue. Yeah.
Well, they probably don't want me saying this, but the biggest challenge with that issue was that it got rewritten from scratch after I already lettered it, so I had to do it all over again.
Oh, really?
But just for reasons, like they had a different beat worked out that they decided wasn't really landing. But on the plus side, it was all captions, and each pass through the book only took me about an hour and a half. I have a pretty good technique down for just doing regular ass square captions, so it was just that like it's a Mitch book, so it's cool and super pretty, and it has a really weird Batman villain who I'm not as familiar with as the others, but all I can really say about it is that, yeah, that's the issue I did twice, but c'est la vie. They paid me for it twice, so I'm happy.
Yeah. It was cool to see that you created movement on the page of Batman holding Professor Pig. I don't know if you specifically remember that page, that splash page of like Batman holding Professor Pig. And then in the following, like the captions were lettered in a way that like were placed in a way that like seems kind of frantic, maybe like kind of like it feels like Batman is losing control. And then in the following page, right before we hit the only dialogue in this issue, the captions straighten out again. So it was that like something that you actually thought about before lettering that page, or it just looked nice? Or
I believe it was something I thought about. On Tom King books, I tried not to go scattery because the tone of the book is usually so heavy and sad. So like there are a lot more like neat vertical and horizontal stacks whenever possible. But yeah, if I do jump around, it's either because, yeah, I'm trying to convey chaos, or they just told me to do it that way. I'm like, you got it, folks. But yeah, like just the whole nature of that issue. I'm going to choose to say I did that on purpose, and I really am that smart.
I mean, it's a really like must have been a challenging issue in some ways in terms of being able to create movement and stuff where you can, right? Because I don't know, there's something about almost having an arrow to each with like the tails of each word balloon that you don't get captions, right?
I don't really think about the word balloon I don't think about the tails that way so much. It's more so like when I'm trying to guide the eye, it's just where I place the balloons and not really the way in which they're aimed.
Yeah.
Like, I figure the eye is already doing that job for me, and I'm not going to patronize the eye. It's one of our greatest organs.
Yeah, true.
It knows what to do.
One of the other issues that we want to talk about is Batman 67, actually. This one was even like more held back than this one's the one that's called All the Way Down, and by King, Lee Weeks, Jorge Fornes, and Laverne Kaczynski on colors. That one, there's like no dialogue, there's no captions for almost all of it. And
yeah, I love that issue.
It's a beautiful issue. I love that issue too. How did you feel about doing that? What was that like? How was that different to other issues?
Is that the one with the beep beeps?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember being a little confused by that because it seemed so tonally off from like the story itself and just Lee Weeks' artwork. Like, Lee Weeks' art is a lot of things. Silly is not one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you want me to do what? And they specifically said Roadrunner style. Like, okay, here you go. Here's this wacky font. 20 minutes later, here you go. Send it to press.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think Jorge. Oh yeah, Lee did it. Yeah, I had a few sound effects in it, didn't I? Was it just Lee, or did Lee and Jorge Fornes do that one?
They both did that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Because Jorge usually does most of his sound effects himself, so I had an even easier time than usual.
Oh really? Oh,
yeah, like I did the beep beeps all throughout. But the rest of the sound effects I only did on Lee's pages and the title sequence. I think I did that too.
And how often is that
serves.
when you're working with an artist that they're doing their own sound effects?
Very rare.
Very rare.
Very, very rare.
I know. I reviewed one of the Adventure Man issues, and I got to just message back and forth briefly with Terry Dodson, and I think he mentioned that in his he does the sound effects himself. Is that right?
Yes, he does 99% of them. Once in a while, I jump in and do, I think in issue 4, I did a few sound effects, but I tried to match his style as closely as I could.
Great to get to do that, because I feel like sound effects are one of the places that you get to get really expressive and fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, like that should be the truth, but like very often my deadlines are so tight that, and I do regret this, that I'm not really able to get that zany with sound effects. Like sometimes it just doesn't fit the mood of the book because it's so because superhero comics these days are pretty grim, and
Yeah.
sometimes there just isn't time because everything's coming in so like hot, or I just have like 5 other books to do that week.
Yeah.
It's something I'm trying to fix. I've done some zanier stuff like an Adventure Band because I had to match what Terry was doing, but here and there in King and Black, when Ryan Stegman leaves out a sound effect, I've been trying to match his awesome sound effects too. So yeah, when I see a lot of other letterers talk about sound effects, I sort of feel like an outsider in that regard, because it's very rarely something where I feel like I'm able to do that, or I'm just not inspired enough to do it. There's some honesty that's going to get me in trouble.
For what it's worth, even if it's first or second draft sound effects, they often stop me in my tracks when I'm reading your works. So.
Oh, thanks. I'm doing something right.
Even like the Kaboom one from Cowboy Ninja Viking.
Right. Well, I took some time with that one.
Yeah.
If memory serves, from 10.5 years ago.
Okay, so I would like to talk more about your daily life. So like how does a normal day look for Clayton Cowles? How many hours do you dedicate to lettering every day? How do you usually get approached for lettering jobs?
All good questions. I guess I'll start with my day-to-day life. Well, I start by waking up way too early, usually between 4 and 6 a.m., 7 days a week.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I didn't choose to live this way. But then I put on a pot of coffee and go turn on the computer and either get started on whatever needs doing, or I take a few minutes to get my brain going by checking out my various news sources or feeds or answering emails or whatever. And then between 6 in the morning and 6 at night, for the most part, I'm lettering. I take breaks to eat and shower and exercise, or to run errands around town. But my work day is usually, I'd say on average, 10 hours long. I'm trying to reduce it to 8, and I'm trying to work less on weekends. I have agents of sorts. Often I'm just emailed out of the blue by indie creators who are looking to get their project started, and I usually can't take it, so I pass those on. But but email is always the way I'm approached. But at Marvel, Chris Eliopoulos is usually the one who handles who's lettering what, unless an editor approaches me on their own and says, "Hey, do you want to do this?" Usually Chris will message me and say, "Hey, do you want to letter this thing?" I will only accept answers in the forms of Simpsons memes. So then I have to get creative. Or at DC, they have an in-house lettering manager, Robert Clark. And if they have a new project going there, he'll email me and ask me if I want to do this project that he or the editors think that I'm right for.
So are there any research involved in your process before starting on your project?
It depends on the book. If it's a big 2 book with an established lettering style that they're not asking me to redo from scratch or whatever, I just go with what's already there. There is a period when I start each new book where I run 4 or 5 fonts and sometimes varying balloon styles among the editors and the creative team to say, "Hey, do you guys want the book to look like this? Or if not, like, what else would you like me to try?" But some books, like Adventure Man, for instance, they told me very early on that it was going to be a very pulpy sort of adventure and that Alex Toth was an inspiration. So I went out and I bought that awesome Alex Toth Illustrator hardcover and checked out the lettering in that, and created some balloons that I knew Matt Fraction would like because he likes his balloons round. And I made some that came out wrong, and I made some tales that I thought matched what Alex Toth was doing, and ended up really liking them and using them in a whole bunch of places. So like if they're asking me to homage something, or if they're trying to evoke a specific atmosphere, yeah, I'll go out and it's an excuse to buy comics, you know.
Yeah.
Support my local LCS.
Yeah. Okay, so we got to the last question. So if someone out there is watching this interview and they decide they want to letter comics for a living, what would be the best piece of advice you could give them?
I should be sincere and not say don't. I would give the same advice I would for any career in comics, which is to work hard, do your research, and seize every opportunity that comes your way. And like see what other people are doing, like look at my stuff and look at what I'm doing that you like, look at what I'm doing that you don't like, and do that for every other editor out there letterer out there too, and like look for ways that you can do better. And also, most letterers, myself included, are really generous with our time. So if you have a portfolio that you want to have reviewed, by all means, feel free to send it to me and I'll give you a critique. And I know others will do the same too. Like, we may be competition, but we're also looking out for each other.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us, Mr. Coles. This was such a great time getting to chat with you about your work and everything. One of the things we want to do just at the end of this is take some time to highlight all the work that you're putting out at the moment, which is a ton, if I might say. DC's Batman, Aquaman, Rorschach, Strange Adventures, Batman Catwoman, Marvel's Daredevil, King in Black, Captain Marvel, X-Men, Venom, Star Wars, Warhammer Marnius Calgar, Eternals, Strange Academy, and Champions. And Image Comics' Adventure Man, Die, and Bitterroot.
Yeah, I'm busy.
Yeah, no kidding. Now I understand why you got those 4 a.m. wake-up calls that you're doing. That makes more sense now.
That is all natural, man. That's just when my body activates. It's a curse.
Oh, wow.
But it helps out with all those conflicting time zones.
Yeah, definitely. And if people are wanting to follow you and your work, where should they go? What are the best places to follow you?
I guess just my Twitter account. It's just my name, Clayton Cowles, and I don't post often. If I'm posting there, it means I want you, my followers, to do something. I have an Instagram account, but it's private, and I don't suggest requesting a follow unless you know me like you two guys do. So if I reject your request, it's nothing personal. It's just pictures of my cats.
Got it. Cool. Well, thank you again so much for doing this with us. This was really great talking to you. And
yeah, same here.
Soon.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mr. Coles. You have a great rest of your day.
You too.